Hi, we're the Rices. We've been married for 12 years. We have 6 kids from the ages of 9 to 0, and we're full of passion to raise a household that serves and honors the Lord. And we want to encourage others to do the same.
And welcome to the Raising Rices podcast. We are really excited about today's conversation because it stems from conversations that we've been having with others and with ourselves. And that's this idea or this coined phrase going around called slow living. Have you heard of it? It's kind of reminds me more of like purposeful living or the eased living movement.
Yeah, I mean, and you might think, well, that sounds totally out of character for these guys. Don't they do, like, everything? But I think that is a perspective that's easy to have if you're coming at it from kind of the outside, or you're looking in at what we do and what we talk about doing. And it's easy to think, wow, how do they possibly do all the things they do? And I think this episode hopefully will give you some insight, some continued behind the scenes about how we think about what we do and how we choose to do it, and maybe inspire you to continue to make intentional decisions with how you spend your time individually and with your family.
So our conviction today is that we want to express and to live out that we find it imperative, that we find the beauty in the simple things. Sometimes I feel like in United States culture, or even world culture, we can idolize the wrong things. We can create an abundance of need for busyness in our schedule, for consumerism, for meeting the next level, if you will. But what we kind of want to talk today is about more like returning to the roots of what it looks like to find joy, peace, contentment, happiness in the simple, mundane comings and goings of life.
Right. I mean, it's so easy in the world we live in to be distracted from the things that really matter. And we talk about this all the time, about applying our worldview, a Christian worldview, in making decisions on what we do and how often we do them and what our priorities are. And I think that this is just another facet, another way to think of these same kind of conversations. How do we think about what we're doing day to day? And is this idea of slow living, like, what does that really look like? Because sometimes it sure seems like it is busier living, but I don't really think it is.
It's kind of funny too, when COVID happened, 2020, all the things,
right.
It kind of forced people back to the home. From,
like all of a sudden the daily activities were all canceled.
Yes. And it kind of gave back in a weird way time.
Right.
Time in the home, time with the family. It caused you to evaluate what types of things were important in your schedule.
And I think it was a real shocker for some people, like not knowing how to cope with being home.
Yeah.
With being with their family, with, oh my goodness, all of a sudden now the dad is working from home too, and a lot of conflict maybe even developed during that time. And what we're talking about maybe sounds foreign, but it really is intentionally doing that and slowing down and being home more.
Yeah. And then after COVID, it's crazy to think this is 2024. So it's been like 4 years.
It's 4 years next month, or last month.
Wow, that's insane. And to think about from that moment up until now, what kind of things have we been seeing either on social media, talking with friends, people starting to prioritize? It is this slow living approach, which I read this acronym for slow living. They call it sustainable, local, organic, and whole. Interesting.
Acronyms for everything.
Acronyms for everything.
Love it though.
But what I think people are starting to take account for is not only their schedule, but their health, how they view life. And I mean, we can all chuckle, those believers that are listening to this podcast right now, because isn't that what God has prescribed to us
Oh, yeah.
in the Bible? I mean, even from the beginning, talking about, having a day of rest.
Right.
It says, be still and know that I am God.
Yeah.
Like, so many things we can see about how we're not trying to have mountaintop experiences every day, but the beauty is found in the valley where we're taking step by step. I was also pondering and thinking about, like I mentioned earlier, the things that I've been seeing on social media, talking with friends. I mean, raise your hand if you don't know someone that's doing sourdough bread right now.
Right.
I mean, everyone is, it feels like, which is wonderful, right? We're learning about natural yeast. We're learning about how to take something from scratch, to cultivate it and create it, and then allow your family to enjoy it. Right? So cool. But it doesn't stop just at sourdough. There's memes all over the place that if you were born in 1995 or lower or higher,
85 to 95 or whatever that.
Your dream is to have a homestead.
Right.
And a Highland cow.
Yeah, and chickens and whatever else. Yeah.
I mean, I say that in jokes, but I also say that in reality, that we're all starting to realize what it could look like for our families to take a more slower approach, to kind of return to our roots, and in that of gardening, in that of making from scratch, using whole foods, kind of moving away from that processed box stuff. Now,
but is like, it comes with this like, you have to give something up.
Right. I was just going to say, like, so where do we find our biblical conviction in that?
Right. Yeah. Where do you find the time, and how does it relate to a biblical worldview?
How does it relate to how we want our family and our vision to be cast?
Right.
And that is a give and take.
Yeah.
Right. And so maybe we talk a lot about consumerism.
Oh, yeah.
Being a producer instead of a consumer. I really have to laugh that the acronym is SLOW. Like slow living, because I think when we think of slow, we think of laziness.
Right. And there's nothing lazy about it.
If you think back about, even a farmer, let's just take a farmer right now.
Right.
Right. They're working sun up to sundown. Is there moderation for eating and resting and enjoying your family? Yes, there is. But slow living doesn't equate to sitting on the couch doing nothing.
Not at all.
Yeah. Right? And so just the word itself, though, kind of cracks me up.
Right. But if you look at the calendar, maybe you could say, oh, well, we don't have something scheduled every night of the week. And then there's not afternoon activities every day of the week. There's a lot of time that's slated that's just you're home. But it doesn't mean that work isn't happening. It doesn't mean that discipleship isn't happening. It doesn't mean that training and relationships and teaching and that stuff is happening. And it's so important. And it is even an opportunity to have those things happen that you might not gain if you were running to baseball practice for one kid and basketball practice for somebody else, and all like the activities, whatever they are.
And you heard us talk so much about family vision. And I think the slow living is directly correlated to family vision. What are your priorities for your family?
Yeah.
Confession, just recently, Darren was like, hey, I'm sort of feeling like the calendar's a little full. Like, what happened, And I do think that from season to season, we kind of cling on or do different things to enjoy the different seasons. And let me explain that a little bit more. In the winter, when there wasn't a lot of things necessarily outdoors to be doing or work to be doing on our personal family farm.
Yeah, like if you hauled the wood and plowed the snow, then
you've done it.
And fed the animals.
Yeah.
That was pretty much
and
it.
So we found ourselves joining a home group, joining a Bible study, joining an inductive study, like all these things. And then spring hit, and now like some actual work outdoor needed to begin. And Darren was like, whoa, what happened to our schedule?
Yeah, what's going to have to go for this next season, or how do you adjust And keep your family vision like in the forefront of what you're doing.
And so I bring up the story, one, to tell on myself, right? But two, to express the reality that busyness is a choice. And sometimes it feels like the right choice in certain moments, or there's so many good yeses, but it's really hard to say no unless you have a vision casted.
Right.
Right? Unless you have a goal determined.
Yeah, if you have something really clear in your mind that says this is the thing that takes priority, then it helps tremendously make those decisions. And I just want to add in one other thing that I think is important, because I think you've brought it up, and maybe you don't intentionally bring it up, but there is an important element to, like, as the husband being able to say to the wife, wow, it feels like the schedule got really full all of a sudden. And then Marissa patiently and submissively takes that in and says, and reflects on it and says, it has, we've signed up for this and this, and we got involved in this. And then recognizing, like you're saying, oh, okay, that's why we got involved in those things in that season. When do those things trail off naturally for the summer? What are our obligations for the rest of our vision coming into the summer? Is the vision still the same?
Yeah.
But there is a good togetherness of teamwork that happens in those moments that's really important, that you're working together and one party isn't so stubborn or so bitter against the other party that you can't communicate through those.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I think the last part of my point is that it does take the head of the house, the husband, saying, in agreement with the wife, but being the one to put the message forward, hey, we're going to take a break from that. Because if you're a wife, sometimes you feel bad about saying no.
Yes, for sure. And as a wife, it is so reassuring to be like, hey, so my husband feels like we can't do this right now. We just got a little busy. I mean, who can argue with that? You can't, because that is biblical. But all of what Darren said is so good that it reminds me of a podcast that we did, ages ago, but we talked about date night ins instead of date night outs. And we really try to, as best as we can and within seasons, be really intentional to connect on those date nights. So date nights are powerful in itself just because you get to enjoy one another's company, but also when you are intentional with part or all of your date night, it is an opportunity to reflect, to conversate, to come up with what the plan is to align yourselves back with that family vision that you had together. And again, we've done a podcast on that before too. I really should have these
the episode numbers in front of you. Yeah.
But if you are looking for advice on that, just scroll through our podcast list.
Yeah. Hello, we want to interrupt this podcast today to let you know that it is brought to you by Heritage Home Family Farm, a Christian family seeking to bring a legacy of flavors to your table. This family is passionate about building the family culture and making homemade with ease. They have a series of spices, loose leaf teas, and baking mixes available to make delicious, clean, and easy homemade food at your table and in your kitchen a possibility in today's busy world. Find out more at heritagehomefamilyfarm.com.
We love to talk about convictions, character qualities that are developed, and challenges that you may face. So we've kind of really expressed to you guys about our conviction.
Yeah.
About the need for us to have an awareness, at least, of slow living. We know that, we have 6 kids, number 7's on the way, and
it's not slow, really.
Right. And busyness creeps in.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And they're good things. Like, you could look at your calendar and be like, these are all great things. It's really hard to, say no to some things, but in our world that we live in, we just cannot possibly say yes to everything.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it comes back to, like we keep saying, like, what's your family vision? What's important? And so if you realize that your family schedule, as many good things are on it, is taking precedence over family devotional time.
Right.
Then and you're only getting 1 or 2 family devotional times in a week, then you should be evaluating the schedule and say, okay, for all of history and for knowing what is imperative in life and for knowing what is our most like our highest responsibility as parents, how do we reprioritize all the good things in order to make the most important things stand at the forefront?
Right. I remember reading this book. It says, what is your best yes? Because there's so many yes opportunities. And in fact, speaking of family Bible time, we also just had to come together and be like, hey, our family Bible time is not being consistent like it was before. What happened? Why is that? And one of the things we realized was that the weather and the sun is up longer. We used to do our family Bible time in the evening, and so it felt really cozy. Grab your tea, sit around the fire, and then head to bed because the days were short.
Because the sun went down at like 4:00.
It was perfect,
Yeah.
right? And then we were like, whoa, we need to adjust. And I know I've said this probably like 3 times now, like, take account of the seasons, take account, like, not just seasons of the year, but like the season that your family's in too,
Right.
and take account of what is changing, because as much as I like to say you can stick to a rigid schedule, it's just not likely.
Right.
Like, it is more likely that things are going to come in disruptors, some good, right? And you're going to just have to evaluate together as a couple. Okay, so what did we do then? Well, our family Bible time wasn't working as well in the evening because we had, now longer daylight. So we switched it to the morning. Since Darren works at home, we can sit around the breakfast table and do that. Does that work for everyone? No, but we get creative in what we're dealt with. And if it didn't work in the morning, then we would probably reschedule some things, again, make it work in the evening, because that is important to our family vision.
Right. Yeah. You have to constantly prioritize it. And maybe it means it's during dinner, or maybe it means it's the only thing you do right after dinner. And then you go back out and do a family walk and enjoy your projects and whatever. And, but you reevaluate the schedule constantly. And sometimes it means that you decide, hey, maybe, baseball season for 3 boys isn't the thing that we can prioritize in our family, because there's other more important or eternal things that offer equal opportunity or better opportunity for discipleship and training of their interaction and team and all of the things that come with various extracurricular activities that you could do. And you find the balance in what really makes sense for us. And then you have to have a strong enough conviction in that you don't have like that FOMO.
Yeah.
That everybody else is doing riding dirt bikes and you're not, or whatever it is.
And, we can always kind of think of that one thing. Like, I think we've brought up sports a couple of times because it is a very busy, it adds a lot of busyness to your schedule. But I also want to just encourage you about the creative nature of decisions, that you can still make decisions that align with your family vision, that aren't creating more to-dos in your schedule, right? Like, we homeschool. So maybe we found a homeschool group that does a sports league or something in the daytime so that we can still maintain our family vision of family Bible time. Or maybe it's a different sport. Maybe it's not baseball, but maybe it's swimming, because you can do that in the morning, or I don't know.
Or like, even, not to only pick on sports, like you've made several connections with great homeschooling groups and opportunities to go out and do field trips. And as awesome as all of the field trips are, sometimes you have to pick, like, we're going to do this one and we're not going to do that one next week. Or, wow, we're looking at our schedule this week and we really feel like we have other things we need to prioritize over driving to that field trip that's an hour away, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it is just part of that slow living idea that you're really intentional about everything you add to your calendar in different seasons.
So what kind of character qualities? Well, you've heard us talk about, we learn and equip our family with flexibility, with maintaining the focus of the vision. But what also comes with that is peace. We like to talk about the Prince of Peace giving us this gift of peace when we are faced with hard decisions and we are walking in his truth and in his will. We get that peace.
Yeah.
It's how the martyrs were able to be burned alive and still proclaim Christ's truth because they had that internal peace, right? And so that is a character quality that is developed in that form and in the form that you are figuring out how to be content and happy with quote unquote less. And I say quote unquote less because it's the world's definition of less and more. You know, we find ourselves out walking in nature, like hiking or doing things, and it is so fulfilling to be in God's creation, but that would be considered less in comparison to going to like a themed water park or something like that in the world's eyes. But when you take on the mental mindset, I guess, of slow living in a biblical way, you start seeing what is around you and the beauty from it and the thankfulness and gratitude that you then have because of it.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be shiny or it doesn't have to be what everybody else is doing, but it really is just developing that sense of wonder at the world around you and that sense of thankfulness and gratitude for the blessings that the Lord has given you. And all of that, when you have a correct view of it, when you don't go, oh, I wish we were all dirt biking and instead we're hiking and that's way less cool or whatever it is, like that, it is contentment. It is teaching that to yourself and teaching that to your kids then in turn, that you don't need whatever it is, whatever the shiny thing is. You don't have to fly to, Europe to do that cool thing. You can go hike and see the wonders of God's creation in your own backyard.
Yeah. And the cool thing too, another quality that is developed is that you kind of set this low expectation in the world's eyes, but somehow you get high enjoyment from it.
Right.
So like you're getting joy out of something that people would just overlook, which then relates it or translates, if you're thinking about as your kids are growing older, to this idea that they are going to find joy and they're going to find beauty in the simplistic things.
Right.
They'll look at a sunset and it's going to give them some peace, joy, and connection with God that they can just look out their back window and enjoy. Or you're not manifesting or creating this moment. The moment is already there, given to you by God.
Right. Yeah, and it is an opportunity to I think we hear a lot from people where they say, oh my goodness, we love what you're doing. We, how do you guys do it? We can't believe you have time to do it. All these kind of things. But it is not, I guess what we're trying to express is it's not without intention.
Yes, we're all given the same 24 hours.
Yeah. You
and quite frankly, I need to sleep 10 of it.
Right, yeah. Marissa sleeps 10 of it, I'll sleep 6 of it, and
it's a good compromise.
There's some hours left in the day. But everybody has that same time, and we all have different obligations that are a little less flexible, but they still are flexible, like work and commutes and things like that. But there is the time in the day. And so it really is just like, what are you choosing to prioritize and do with that time that makes such a huge difference?
So we have a short list for our challenge section today that we're going to talk about some of the challenges that maybe the world or that culture influences us in, and also the challenge that we can give ourselves to do better. And the first one we've already mentioned before earlier in this podcast, but we talked about to understand, to realize, to embrace that busyness is a choice. AKA everything that we decide to do is a choice, right? And we are in control of that. In submission to Christ,
right,
we make those decisions for our family.
Yeah, and you should not feel obligated to I don't know. I feel like you should not feel obligated to any person or any pressure to do a certain thing.
And you know what? That obligation usually is self, right? We're usually our own worst critics and guilt masters.
Right. Yeah. We're like, oh my goodness, we just have to do that or we're a bad parent.
Right. I mean, I've been now homeschooling for 8 years, no, 6 years. And every year I'm like, am I doing enough? Am I doing okay? Is this
Right.
all right? And yes, I like to share a lot of things about homeschooling on our Raising Races Instagram and Facebook account because I hope it's encouraging. And I've had people say, wow, it looks like you're so confident or put together. And I just want to be like, if you only knew. If you only knew the thoughts were going on in my head, but submitting them to Christ is where you find that encouragement, true encouragement.
Right. Next thing, you have to define what's most important to you. So this is our challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Look at your family vision, look at your mission in life, and define what is most important to you. And it might be different things for all of our families.
Yeah.
But then the second part of that question is that thing have eternal value? Or does it have does it have eternal value? Is it building up the young people that we're raising in a way and giving them skills in a way that is glorifying for God, that progresses the kingdom?
Yeah. And when they are eternal, they are essential, right? Because every conversation, every action, everything that we do has lasting effect. I remember talking to someone where we carry our babies, either right now in the front or on the back while we're doing hiking and while we're, traveling as a family, or we feel like it's important to have them in with us in church. Whole another conversation. Wow, I am getting really tongue tied today. But the thing is, even if they don't remember what you are doing, you are setting trajectories.
Right.
Right. And so everything that you decide, you need to kind of weigh out, is this essential or non-essential? Is this eternal or should it be eternal?
Right.
Right? And so our third challenge would be to be okay saying no to the non-essential things. And it's ironic that I'm the one sharing this essential because I'm the one that struggles with this the most in our family. But it is okay to say no so that you leave room for your yeses.
Yeah, like we even made some decisions just in the last year where there's good programs, good meetings, good things to be involved in, but we felt like there was better that we could do.
Yeah.
And that there was other opportunity that would allow for our whole family to function better in discipleship and in rest and in training and teaching and all those things. And you just have to be able to graciously, with love, not offending anyone, say, hey, we decided that we don't have time in our schedule for that.
Yeah.
And just be okay with saying no to what you've worked out to be a non-essential thing.
Yeah. The next thing that we would say in that all seasons, whether you're starting this slow living approach, whether you're already in it and you've gotten busy, or you just feel like you need to kind of diminish a little bit of the busyness, is that just to start with some slow downshifting, right? Like just start slow, evaluate together, take that one step of change, and then when you have that one in place, take the next step of change. You don't need to do everything cold turkey. Right? But just as a constant reevaluating, look at what kind of steps that you need to take forward to just bringing your life into a peaceful place.
Because it's incredible what just one thing a week will do.
Yeah.
Just those 3 hours. It's incredible how much of a difference that can make in the way the whole week functions. And that's just one thing.
Right. The other next challenge is definitely a challenge for both men and women, but especially moms. If you're staying at home, is to really be present in the moment. Part of slow living, and it's so funny we keep using this word, but it's just a termed word, so bear with us as we do that. But part of slow living is to embrace the mundane, right? And because we said earlier, our conviction is that there's beauty in the simple moments. That is the same as, being present in the moment. It is so easy for me. It is so easy, I know, for others that I've talked to pick up the phone, to scroll, to be distracted by something else that is non-essential or
Right.
not eternal. And I'm not saying about like dishes and stuff. Yes, we have responsibilities, and work is eternal. Work
Right.
is good.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about other distractions that maybe are pulling us away from where we need to be in the moment. And when we do that, we are actually hurting not only ourselves, but our family too. When we find ourselves scrolling so that we can have an escapism moment from the day, we are falling into the comparison trap. We are falling into this mindset of like, oh, well, the grass is greener on their side, or look what they're doing, or I'm not comparing to them. When really what is crying out for us